What's something a teacher did at school that you're still mad about? My 6th grade history teacher would clip his toenails in class. Now I have a foot phobia. I went to a high school that had a uniform. We were supposed to have our shirts tucked in at all times. I was walking into English class. Between bells. Tucking in my shirt because it came up out of my skirt while I was taking my cardigan off. My English teacher stopped me and asked, "Were you just tucking your shirt in?" I told her I was and she promptly wrote me up for having had my shirt untucked. It was utter bullshit and I lost total respect for her. Some teacher called me a waste of time and space during the end of school performance because I was too shy to sing. I didn't pick a singing role. I was like 10 to 11 years old. They thought I was doing coke in class at the age of 14. Still bitter about that 5-day in school suspension. Science teacher was a lazy shit that didn't even interact with us in any way. She'd write page numbers from a textbook on the whiteboard. And not even talk to us. Until the inspectors came, of course. When she'd have a wonderful interactive lesson planned for us. I was old enough to realize this was bullshit and refused to do any work unless she actually asked us to do so with her own fucking mouth. This went on until she got my parents involved. I told them everything, and they had a chat to the head about her. I don't know if anything came of it. I had a friend in college who really went above and beyond on a programming assignment. She thought of everything. Part of the teacher's test was trying to break the program. Done in class as a presentation thing. The teacher couldn't break it and marked her down for not following the rules. What my friends did was outside the scope of what was required, but nowhere in the rules did say not to. And if anything, should have been given extra points for really digging in and learning more. A boy in my class. About 8 years old. Had dyslexia. So one time, the teacher gave a dictation. He had spelled all the words wrong and she was really mad at him. Just shouting to him in the middle of the class that he should have tried harder. He didn't do well enough, etc. He was crying and from that moment on I really hated her. The teacher got up in the middle of my presentation. Took my paper out of my hand, and in front of the entire class told me that I had plagiarized my assignment from the internet. The thing is, we didn't have the internet at that time at my house. I had worked through the entire assignment while talking about my ideas with my dad. It was super embarrassing. Made me feel better to learn that the next day my dad went into class and yelled at the teacher in the staff room in front of all his peers. I didn't have a problem with that teacher after that. Last grade in high school there was a chemistry teacher in my school who had 2 different sections of the same class. Both with too many students due to amazing provincial budget management. My class. This guy routinely called the dumb kids up to the board and made them sweat in front of everyone when they clearly didn't have an answer. Shouted at kids who didn't study. And was generally being an angry dick. It was normal for kids to just walk away to drop out of it when we shuttled between the classroom and lab. I wasn't one of the dumb kids. So I didn't get much direct abuse. But I ended up dropping because I was sick of being constantly stressed and angry. At first I figured he was just being an asshole to clear out the extra students and I hated him for that, but I could at least understand that he was put in a bad position. I later found out about the other class. Overloaded with kids. Like mine was, but no angry outbursts. He played music during quiet study times. And generally treated everyone nicely. The guy was running a fucking experiment without telling anyone. 26 years later. I'm still pissed off when I see him around the community. Edit. Typo. In about 1966 when I was 6Y, our class was making some sort of Valentines with multiple folds on which we were supposed to write little Valentine's Day messages. The teacher was wandering between the desks while scanning our projects. At one point I guess I had written on the wrong side of one of the folds. So she stopped at my desk. Grabbed my hand and slammed it down forcefully on the desktop. It hurt and was very embarrassing. Fuck her. I hope the 54 years she has lived since then have been miserable. Shaming me for not knowing how to spell my 12-letter last name. 1st grade. Edit. Peeing my pants because my teacher wouldn't allow me to use the bathroom. 3rd grade. In biology class, the teacher was teaching about DNA. He wanted to give us a sense of the overwhelming number of combinations a DNA strand can have. So he created a simplified version. Picture a strand of DNA as if it's a ladder. This ladder has 6 rungs, and each rung is either red or blue. How many different possible ladders are there? We separated into groups to answer this question. And the first table to get it right gets 5 extra points on the next quiz. I raise my hand and say the answer is 64. He says no. The answer is in the billions. I say no. It's 64. He tells me to sit down and continues with the lesson. No one gets any points. I go home and literally type out every possible options. I print it out and give it to him. It's a document that looks like this. 0000000, 00001, 00010, 00011. ... I show it to him. He says he's impressed with the work I did, but that my answer is wrong. But he'll give me the 5 extra points anyway. So goddamned frustrating. Later on he tells me he asked the AP chemistry teacher and it turns out I was right. Edit. Fixed some details. Told me that I wasn't worthy of anyone's respect. Broke a kid's phone and lied about it to assistant principals. Yelled at my choir director for playing the piano while there was AP testing going on. When it was her first year at the school and many of her students were present. The list goes on and on. Fuck that guy. Homework in 2nd grade was to learn our parents' real names instead of mom and dad. I came in and told the class my mom had a different last name than me. The teacher said, "No. Her last name is Jutsu like yours and your daddy. That's what happens when you get married." I told her that it was just me and my mom and that my daddy never lived with us. She told the class that that meant they needed to pray for me and my mommy because we were going to hell. That was my last day at that school. On the last day of school my homeroom teacher took me out into the hall and told me she thought it was her moral obligation to tell me I'm a horrible person. No specifics. No advice. Just I'm a horrible person. I was never in trouble in school. Always tried my best to be kind. And was even the valedictorian. I spent the rest of the period pretending I wasn't crying because my friends still had a final in the afternoon they were studying for and needed to pass. Little me was obsessed with 2 things. Dinosaurs until I saw Jurassic Park. And space. I was obsessed. In 3rd grade we had an assignment where we had to talk about orbits. I wrote examples like the moon orbits the Earth orbits the sun, and the sun orbits the Milky Way. My teacher gave me a D and refused to listen to me that what I had said was true. We didn't have computers in the classroom so there was no way to look it up. I tried to bring a book with it the next day but she blew me off. Joke's on her though because I'm about to get my PhD in astronomy. Edit. I wasn't quite clear in what I wrote. She didn't believe the sun orbiting around the center of the Milky Way. She was an anti-Copernican. I took a very difficult chemistry class in high school. The kind where only one student gets an A and you work your ass off to get a B. I had maintained a B for most of the year, when I forgot to write my name on a test. Teacher was an extreme hardass and gave me a 0 for not writing my name. Which brought my grade down to an F. To get my grade back up, he allowed me to ask for extra quizzes for the entire class, and every time we'd have the quiz he would announce to the class that it was because of me and they could all thank me. God, the revenge fantasies I had to get him back. When I was in 5th grade and my little sister was in 2nd grade. She wanted to pick some apple blossoms for her teacher. When she presented the little bouquet to her teacher, the teacher flipped out, lectured her for 10 minutes about why she shouldn't go on people's lawns to pick flowers, then threw the blossoms away in front of her. My sister was devastated, and I found her on the playground, crying. The apple blossoms were from our apple tree. In our front yard. First and last time I have ever yelled at a teacher. Totally worth the office referral. Primary school teacher asked me what the biggest number possible is. I said numbers go on forever so there is no biggest number. My dad had told me that fact and it was interesting so I remembered it. The teacher told me that was stupid and proceeded to grab one of the really cheap school calculators and type in as many 9s as could fit on the display. She then held it up in my face and said, "There. That's the biggest number there is." That still annoys me to this day. In kindergarten we had a bathroom log and the kid before me did not sign this log and put scissors down the toilet which caused it to clog. Since I was the last one on the log, I was blamed for it by the teacher and it was never me. Dumb teacher. I was terrible at maths as I'd been moved up to the top class and couldn't keep up. The teacher knew I was a donkey and would always ask me to make sure I'm listening, yet would laugh along with everyone else when I didn't know an answer or would get it wrong. Graded the boys and girls differently. She was my middle school history and speech teacher. And we knew she was grading the boys much more harshly than the girls. We couldn't prove it while I was at that school. But we knew. A couple years after my class graduated, a group of students who had the same thoughts set her up in a grading sting. Essentially, 2 boys and 2 girls wrote the same paper for an assignment, not literally the same, because that would have been cheating. But they all argued the same points in the same way. just with different wording and structure in their papers. The boys got C's and the girls got A's. They took the papers to the headmaster and had him read them with all of this in mind. She was asked to resign shortly thereafter. What still pisses me off is that nobody believed us when I was in school there. It was a serious source of stress for me then too, since I was very motivated by my grades, and just could not figure out why I was struggling so much with her classes. I was the only junior in the class. The rest were jock-type seniors. I was the only one to get a C in the class while the rest got A's. It was ridiculous because the teacher couldn't justify my getting a C. Edit. I had an average of about 91% in high school, and that was my first and only C.